Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning, wherever you are. Good night, wherever you are. Welcome to Waterhouse Vibes. Another Sunday at the round table. And we have the usual panelists, John Horton, who is in Florida, Las Crawford in Canada, and Maxine in Jamaica. Today, we're going to discuss two items. Well, not so much. The first one is Maxine is going to give us an update on her movements in Jamaica. And then we'll go into the manifesto, continue the discussion started last week into the People's Manifesto, Working People Manifesto. But before I do all of that, I must say this. Last week, Saturday, I called into Rattigan's show. And he was talking about the violence and what have you. And in that discussion, I said to him, it's rather strange that whenever time we have crisis like what facing Jamaica right now, criminal justice crisis, the government always respond, the politician always respond in terms with a punitive approach. So I asked him a question, why aren't we seeing more politicians talking about peace? Now the political parties commit themselves to building a peaceful Jamaica. That was the question I asked. The following day, Sunday, Prime Minister Holness made an announcement.
Get a ministry.
They want a ministry of peace, which tell me that these guys are listening to us. They are listening to us. You know, someone is monitoring because I was surprised. So it's good that they are listening to us. In terms of implementation, I'm not sure about that because peace is one thing, you know, but can we have peace without truth and reconciliation in Jamaica? Can we have that? I doubt it. But yet still the politicians continue to play around with Jamaican people, feelings and what have you. And I thought that is what the Prime Minister did last Sunday at his conference. So I just put that out there so you guys can think about it. They are listening to us, so be mindful of that. Now that we set that aside, Maxine, you were in Kingston, you are in Jamaica, and you made a visit to Waterhouse. Can you bring us up to date? Tell us what the experience is like and what are some of the ideas that you have, what you think the people of Waterhouse or main organizers should be looking at this point?
Yes, well, as you know, I'm focused on celebrating 50 years of the dancehall genre in the context of the dancehall and the sound system being at the foundation of the Jamaican music industry. Not just a foundation, but it's all, I would say it's like the spinal cord, or the framework of how Jamaican music got started and how it innovates consistently over the decades until at present it evolved into a genre similar to the reggae genre and has as much role in the internationalization and the influence of the music, being that urban music is now a global platform. You know, all the countries of the world have, majoritively urbanized, and that urban environment is has similar conditions, social and economic conditions. And so you find that music, as it is being made globally in these new environments, that Jamaica and our history and what we have done is highly influential in some of the top genres of the world, starting with hip hop, reggaeton, and now
Afrobeat.
Afrobeat. And all that can be traced back to how we create in Jamaica and the role of the sound system. So, in celebrating that, I got to meet Michael Nita, and he began to expound on Waterhouse, which I am familiar with, having visited there, within the history of the music, working with my late husband, Sugar Minot. I've been at Jammies, I've been at Tubby's, I've been all of these spaces, but I didn't see it as a whole focal point. In the last few years, last decade or so, I've been working with the late Honorable Bunny Whaler. So his journey took me into Trenchtown, in a focused manner as well. And working with um, Sugar would have carried me into Maxfield Park and, you know, just a whole urban situation. So I'm somewhat familiar with Waterhouse, but not looking at it in its totality, which in I began to be educated of so many people in the music industry and the sports as well, emanating from the space. But what was surprising to me as I was talking to Michael and then going there physically is how broad um, the space is, that it even incorporates Washington Gardens and a lot of communities that I thought was different from Waterhouse actually is incorporated in Waterhouse. And then the names, fundamental names, like Sly Dunbar and so many musicians, and technical people, Bobby Digital. Well, I know of Junior Reed as well. I know most of them, I know, but I didn't know that they actually came from Waterhouse. So I said, well, oh, I could, in speaking with Michael, I said, all right, so for the dancehall campaign and the history, we could spotlight Waterhouse based on especially the role of King Tubby's and U-Roy being the first DJ that was, recorded in the studio on vinyl, on an album. And so that led me to, as you know, all of these communities are very depressed communities, depressed economically because they were on the front line of the political struggles that again um, dovetails with the dancehall 50, in that a lot of these struggles were also germinating and occurring in the early 70s. And so, you know, in looking at the history and looking at the heritage and looking at the drivers, because right now, creative industry is one of the platforms being promoted for economic development of the country. Not simply the end product of the musician or the artist, but the whole background and the whole promotion, or the whole, what do you call it, documenting of the industry and the goods and services that can come out of that documentation, which involves movies, museums, um, making of, special merchandise, um, and just the generation of more innovation. Because the more the youths are exposed to what has
And
occurred
related.
before. Music in
No
itself
man, you the back get in no man.
is
Yeah, yeah.
always it's a reusable asset. So we are always reinventing the music, combining it with different elements, influences. New technologies come on board, and these new technologies mixed with the basic creative assets form new products and services. So that led me into, Michael said you have to go there and see the place and feel the place, so that other than, theoretically looking at it, how can we, engage it practically? And he expressed, and I was shared documents um, on certain developments that had been started there in the development of a community studio and a space. And there's a lot of what you call muralization, storytelling being done on the walls of communities, telling the history of, you know, major achievements, mostly in the arts and culture and sports in these communities. And that itself had also started in Waterhouse, but we were looking for a driver to take it to the next level. And so it's with that approach that I went in to the community about 2 or 3 days ago and spent a couple hours chaperoned by Chris Constantine, and was, it was very intriguing, interesting, and inspiring, because I said it's a community that I know, but I don't know in its totality. And so this was my first time now understanding it. Not just even with the music, I was surprised and educated on the Rastafari culture, which I am, a major participant in, not just as a Rastafari myself, but very focused on the heritage of the Rastafari community. And we're actually working on the 100-year um, platform for 2030. It will be 100 years since the coronation of His Imperial Majesty. And obviously, the community has to be looking forward to that milestone. And I saw where our experience for the first time, where Waterhouse has such a significant um, role in the community and a significant heritage space. So I was able to um, experience also the square. That's at where, that Penwood Road and Bay Farm Road,
Yeah.
right? That I fly past all the while as a shortcut to Spanish Town Road from Halfway Tree. But in this instance, I saw that this was actually the hub of the music community and how the music had expressed itself, and said, "Wow, you know." Uh, I saw a space where I said, "Oh, so this would be the culture yard," which, Trenchtown has a culture yard where it expresses the whole history of Trenchtown. It acts as a portal for the information of the space, and then it sends tours. Either you can tour the space within the yard, or you can go on particular trips, heritage trips, to various parts of the community. So I also was inspired to say that this area, how can it be developed as an economic driver, um, and be enhanced in its characteristics, which again, it's a major, not just for the community, but it's a major thoroughfare for people traveling in from the country or going, from Kingston um, into the country. It could be easily, people could easily be rerouted because of the geographic nature of where this hub is. And in researching it in my brain, I said, oh, there needed to be some kind of pedestrian bridge that would allow for that center to be able to be used outside of the heavy traffic that was there. And I said, oh, they could build a bridge museum. I thought it was a new term until I Googled it and saw that there are bridge museums all over the world, where countries have actually, used gullies and major thoroughfares to actually express um, the history of a space. And, when I thought of the bridge, I said, oh, that would be good because it also force people to look up, you know, and see potential. That's something that I also learned in my career coming up, that in negative situations, um, or depressed situations, it's always good to have a concept where people look up instead of looking, directly at each other. It's like you see different opportunities, and it's less conflictual. So that was an idea that came to me. And again, I also saw the nature of the community being homeowners. Like, even though many people would have left, the stock of homes that exist there, you realize that if whatever was, mm, which is obviously the politicality that came in to change the natural home ownership, and community development, that the potential was still there because the housing stock was, very much intact. And so I saw potential there for, oh, it's not as depressed as certain other urban communities that the music is related to. And so I also experienced another plot of land. I think they said it's the media mix, which is the last set of open land in the area, that Chris said that potentially they had a housing development targeted there. And I was, I thought about that, and I said, well, whatever development should have an economic driver to it, and it should be linked to the culture of the community. Again, sports is a major um, focus because of Shelley-Ann, Fraser, and her international appeal and what she has achieved from an Olympic status. I'm not clear of other sports stars there, but certainly that should be incorporated. And so what I thought about for the space was actually an urban hotel. Um, I was saying, oh, there's a whole movement for the creation of urban hotels that reflect the nature of urban environments. And I said this would be an ideal place, based on its location again, to develop such a hotel and create even the creative ideas. I'm not sure how the planning for the housing scheme is going on, as to who owns it or how it's going to be developed. But what I saw recently in the Bronx surrounding the Hip Hop Museum was that it was actually a housing development that was designed to incorporate the culture of the area in the South Bronx, where hip hop is known to be have born. But the housing development actually majoritively paid for the space to develop the creative space, the creative museum, and the other attractions that were linked to the museum. So I saw a huge potential. And in further talking with Chris and Michael, I didn't know that under the inscription from the music via UNESCO that had focused on Kingston being a creative city, that Trenchtown was identified, but I did see and understand that Waterhouse also has been identified to benefit from the spotlighting, the mapping, and the focus of the music inscription. So I saw, various elements that I think with a driver and a communication with the diaspora community, um, that, we could, obviously something is ongoing and needs a spark, and it should be aligned with objectives of, um, because I listened to the program yesterday on, Rattigan's program, where a lot of the history of how the violence entered Waterhouse, similar to other urban communities in and around Kingston, and the effect that it has, and the fact that some kind of acknowledgement, the continuities or the legacies that are obviously there, because I did see in the trip, I went to an area called Whalers, which I was very interesting based on my relationship with the Whalers and Bunny Whaler. And when it was explained to me that this group, this area was named after a gang that called themselves Whalers, who were rude boys of that period, you know, and the music that was being sung by the Whalers at that time, you know, the convergence of the reality as to where the Whalers are now, you know, in terms of the global industry and where that community, you know, is situated. And as we're going through there, heading towards Tubby's, I saw where the dividing line between the JLP and the PNP community, a particular road, I don't remember the road that it's on, but it showed where there was a development and the road stopped. The fixing of the road stopped right at the borderline. And then you could see no road where we are, everything is dilapidated. And so you saw, and I think that's the road that led right to King Tubby's. And so you saw the history, and the continuity and the legacy. And so in my mind, it's, if we are going to go and preserve the heritage and do all of this, we could never do that without addressing what the music itself was reflecting, because the music um, was the mouthpiece for all this that was going on. It was a mirror of what is going on. So in us recapturing the heritage and seeking to bring benefit to the community and to the artists, because there are a lot of the artists that come from that space, and certainly the Rastafari community will not benefit from their music if spaces like these are also not, developed. So, I pictured the various artists and or their estates, you know, really coming together to support, having a space developed for them that they could come and support. I did also see two major spaces. I think it was Capo, right? And another major artist that had developed a space on a Rastafari artist on
Baker,
Bakery
Baker
in,
Lane.
right. And even my own relationship with Ras Daniel Hartman, even though I didn't participate with him I didn't, he wasn't living in Waterhouse at the time, but he would visit there, often. I realized, there's so much to authenticate, and then what would you do with that authentication in terms of the creative industry, So it's collectivizing the history, for a purpose. So definitively, everything that relates to Jamaican music and culture and history, there is a very there's a very, ripe opportunity, which is acknowledged because, like I said, I saw where Waterhouse has been identified, to the international spaces. But I guess I actually did meet someone, coincidentally, prior to my visit, that mentioned that, Jamaica, they have developed a social stock exchange down at the JSC, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, to channel investment into the creative industry, into these communities. They have a project now running in Trenchtown, and the personality, when they heard that I was going to visit Waterhouse, they remarked to me that, yeah, Waterhouse is on their agenda, but it hasn't been actualized, potentially needing a driver, you know, to make the connections. So I do have a idea that there are a lot of hanging wires, that contain opportunity that, we can certainly being brought into this team of concerned and active citizens at home and abroad in Waterhouse that we could, make a move for 2024. One other interesting thing that came out of the Rattigan show yesterday was the discussions in relation to the violence and who first brought in the guns and why and so on and so forth. I I was hearing the dates, 1970, 72, 74, 76 as major dates, which, even 1976 for me is the day, is the year that the solo albums, the major solo albums of the Wailers came out. Black Heart Man, Legalize It for, Bunny Wailer, Legalize It for Peter Tosh, and Rastaman Vibration for Bob Marley. And, in my head, I'm flipping what's happening, politically and socially for us as a nation. And this music that has, you know, conquered the world. And I said I went and did the research, and I saw, wow, the Gun Control Act was actually um, instituted in 1974. So it's actually the 50th anniversary of the Gun Control Act. So, yeah, my mind, like I said, the visit and the whole relationship with development and the statements and causing people to think and what do you do, both from a diaspora and a community perspective. Another thing that had popped up on the visit was maybe international people in the diaspora who own homes there, but because of the violence and they have moved on, or their families aren't interested to come back, that a lot of those homes maybe have the potential for administration in a creative way, um, that may, make sense. It was an interesting community. I've been in Augustown recently working with or around in and around Sizzler. So I was able to see, another major music community of artists and so, and what the local environment is like. So comparatively speaking, Waterhouse has a lot more going for it, that if properly organized, it can become a leading principle, within itself, and for conversations and resolutions, in Jamaica.
Gentlemen, any feedback? Any questions? No question?
Is everyone spellbound or?
No,
Thinking,
I
thinking,
will just make
thinking.
yeah, I would just make one comment. While you were talking, a gentleman in the
Chat.
in the chat uh, gave a comment about some of the ideas you have. What it showed me is that there are going to be contesting or conflicting ideas on how to develop the community.
+1
And
646
he
2725
mentioned a medical center rather than an urban hotel.
2587.
He also talked about commercial space, and I'm aware that the tourism product development company, I'm aware of that. They're getting funding to I wouldn't say sponsor, but to as you put it, I think the word you use is uh, ignite, or yeah, that's not the word you use, but I think that's what you mean. Somebody that is spearheading, making the thing work.
Yeah.
So I only say that to say that perhaps in Waterhouse, as a case in point, there can be some sort of effort to get feedback from
Well,
the
I think,
community on how
I
to,
think, go ahead.
yes, on how to, how to develop some of these develop this program in a more specific, or what, how to best get the people involved, if you want um my idea. That it sounds to me like, I got some of the stuff that you gave into Nito, and
Well, I
Waterhouse
think that the medical, the medical
Center, yeah.
and other even what you call it, information technology, all of these industries are are natural. If you say that you're gonna have a hotel, for example, um, if you notice how every area they want to privatize um, the in the tourism areas, for example, I'm saying they want to privatize medical centers to support the tourism product. So once you have a development, because I mentioned the hotel because they seem to say it was going to just be a housing um, development, and I was like, oh, because of the music and because of the high interest, like say from an Airbnb perspective, when they said that, an enormous percentage of the people interested in Airbnb in Jamaica, the majority of those people wanted to go to Trenchtown. So the the concept of the hotel environment was because, I mean, the suggestion was because it is a driver to bring in interested and sometimes very corporate socially responsible people that would then invest in other things. So you, I mean, Waterhouse as a committee of for development would have to have all of the factors: education, health, school, all of the things that makes a community wholesome would necessarily have to be in the overall plan. It's just from the point of view of interest coming from the music and culture brand, you know, where my suggestions were. So I'm just saying that to say, John, I don't find a conflict in the suggestion from that person because definitely the health of the people and the delivery of that health is an important part in economic and mental health development, which is mental health and mental strategies towards health would have to be applied to the traumatic situations that has um, occurred there. Yeah.
I want to welcome Rupi Walters. He's now with us. Rupi, welcome.
Yeah,
Any
man.
other?
Shout out to the panelists. Shout out to the panelists, all your viewers and your listeners. Big shout out.
Yeah. Any other
I
more
would
questions?
I would certainly want I
Yeah.
would certainly want to comment and a few of the points raised by Maxine and followed up by John. I think the experience that Maxine got in touring Waterhouse and just listening to her tell me that basically Maxine maybe is the right person at the right time. And given her international experiences and her knowledge of the subject as it relating to entertainment and how you can actually try to realize a project like the one that both Michael and Chris um, is trying to basically develop over time. There's two things I want to comment on. I think I indicated in the first discussion with Maxine. I humbly want to propose that you extend that geographical reach to include Tower Hill, Cockburn Pen, Seaview, and Compound. I want to basically propose, as before, that you speak about Kingston 11 with the emphasis on Waterhouse. If you're talking about the emerging dancehall and the great dancehall kings and queens, I think, yeah, I mean, see you alone, it's Shabba, Bunchy, and Elephant Man. It's three of the giant that. If you come to Cockburn Pen, you're talking about Cockburn Pen Tower Hill, a Josie Whale, a Uri, a Little Twitch, um, Wild Apache,
Meditation.
you know, Early B, Prince Jasbo. We can just go on and on and on and on. You know, so I think you'd have far more to, if you're being a little bit more inclusive. Make Waterhouse be the priority, so to speak, as the front, but certainly extend the thing to the broad Kingston 11, because I think you can get far, far more out of it, as it relating to some giant coming out of that community in general. The second point I'd want to raise with you is the question of the proposed urban hotel. I agree with you, but even more so, I think where tourism is going now internationally is more community tourism, yes, cultural tourism, and people are extremely fascinated just to use the facilities of Airbnb, just to going out home as somebody who live in Waterhouse, just the admiration of how them live, how them eat, and so on and so forth and all of that. I think that is far more appealing, in my view, than the question of an urban hotel. I mean, yes, you can have an urban hotel, but certainly the prospect of both creating economic opportunities for ordinary citizens and just to give these foreigners, just like how them said at Trenchtown. And I don't think Trenchtown is so much they want a hotel in a Trenchtown, but just to go live in a somebody yard or live at Trenchtown and get the experience both in terms of, you know, the natural Jamaican culture, the food, the dress, you know, and just the general vibes. So my emphasis would be on to try and develop Airbnb rather than to talk about urban, you know, urban hotel at this time. I stop there.
Ratigan, Patrick.
Yeah, I pretty much endorse what Whoopi said. You know, I think Whoopi hit the nail on the head. I'm definitely for the suggestion he made in terms of, you know, broadening geography of the area, and you know, make Waterhouse be the focal point, but at the same time include these other areas, because these areas are just as rich culturally, and it would do us well to involve them as well, and that too might, you know, just help to in the whole promotion, the overall promotion of everything. And certainly in terms of the Airbnb, I like that idea, but I would say, you know, it can go along with the urban hotel situation if that situation exists too. So at least it offer more choices as well. So that's what I would.
Yeah, I was saying I agree with Rupi. I'm kind of familiar with all of these spaces. I was born in Tower Hill and grew up in all of these spaces, Waterhouse, Mall Road, all of these spaces. So I kind of know that the cultural, know of the culture that exists in all these spaces. And I think it would be good to kind of broaden it. My concern though is how to get in terms of that kind of development. We know that the political directorate usually is not so enthusiastic about cultural development, especially in the downtrodden communities. How would we kind of work with them to get their kind of buy-in because we definitely need the buy-in in terms of, like, already you hear raise the conflict in terms of what some people want development to look like in the communities. Some people want development to be like commercial space, medical space. And when you put that against the cultural aspect, it's kind of a challenge to get the buy-in of the political people who making these kind of developmental decisions inside of the communities. So we'd have to look at how would we kind of get the buy-in of these people who have the power in terms of making certain kind of development happen in these communities.
Ratigan.
Not hearing you. Not hearing you.
What now? Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I said I can't add anything to what's been said, so I won't take up any time, except to say thanks to you and Patrick for showing up yesterday. Show was well received, and I heard Maxine made mention of it, and that was good. So thanks again.
Let me try to speak to some of the points made. First, broaden the area. The working definition that Chris and I have is one called Greater Waterhouse, and that sort of encompass all of those areas, Rupi touch on, Tower Isle, Cockburn Pen, because we're looking at the Greater Waterhouse. But the reality is we have to start somewhere, and Waterhouse is where we have our greatest strength. Strength not just in terms of the legacy and the competitive advantage. We also have a politician, MP Hilton, who is very supportive of what we are doing. And he has demonstrated that by reaching out, putting us in touch with people, organizations like TPDCO and others. So we have that in place. What we do not have anyone in Tower just now. And I am not sure if it's because of lack of outreach or what have you. But Tower Hill is represented by wholeness. And you know how that goes. You know, the very partisan person, and we want to make sure that we build on what we have already in place. It's not that we're not mindful of Tower Avenue and Cockburn Pen and Seaview Garden and what have you. We just need to start from a foundation that we have control over, and we can influence the direction of the project, rather than taking on something much larger than our capacity just now. So that's the reason why we have moved in that direction. Maxine, I think what you did by going into Waterhouse, it sort of give you a feel as to the terrain. Because regardless of what people say, good things are happening in Waterhouse. It's just that people are scared of coming in and visiting. And I hope this visit will sort of open up folks' eyes and get some folks on board. The unfortunate thing in this process that Chris and I initiate is that you all are aware that a number of artists come out of Waterhouse. The problem is that we are not getting any support from any of them. They are not. These are some very selfish individuals. When I say selfish, I mean that they are selfish. You know, they do nothing in the community, nothing. So that's one of the challenge for us now in terms of how do we bring that creative force on board the process. And that is something that we are working at. We have verbal commitment, people like Michael Rose, who say, yeah, man, I'm ready and I'll do performance and whatever. But that is as far as it goes. You know? So, Maxine, I want to thank you very much for the visit.
I'd like to make a comment
Go ahead.
Based on what Rupert was saying, because you know one of my most treasured artists is Super Cat from Cockburn Pen.
Yeah.
So, but what I think would be naturally happening is the mapping of the music is not going to stop at Waterhouse. So once you start to map, which is what the UNESCO project is about, you naturally are going to have to, even on a map, you understand, you're going to see these individuals that emanate and correlate with the assets in Waterhouse, which really are, as I'm thinking about it, the studios, you know, certainly Tubbies and Jammies, you know, so many different artists in the circumference would have to naturally be incorporated in the music story. So
Yeah.
if there's even a physical place, the cultural story is automatically going to incorporate these individuals. And then you'll find that the history of why the places are separated. I remember Supercat, you know, in our engagement, you know, how disturbed he was that, you know, recounting when his community was separated, you know, when as an artist he was just up and down, and then on a certain time him can't go across that street, or that person now, you know, is him enemy or whatever. So our proposed enemy, you know, enemy when they're on the ground, but not enemy when they're touring the world. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to, there's no as you say, it's just a catalyst for a larger situation that's going to buck up also into Trenchtown. A lot of people from Trenchtown, you know, migrated into Waterhouse. You know what I mean? So the stories are going to merge. It's just an organizing point that is strong enough to be a magnet. I think the opportunity is there for that.
Any additional comment?
Yeah, I certainly want to respond to your comment. I have a slight disagreement with you. Um, I think we just need to be careful that we don't sunk into the narrow partisan, you know, honest a labor right and him at the head for the JLP. So to get him. No, I don't think that should be the approach. I would think that if you have a project like this, I presume you can have a document, you can have document that will indicate the essence of the project, as it relating to you know, with yourself, Chris, and now Maxine. That basically you would want to invite him as the member, say that aspect of that geographical space that you want to include. And make him respond, you know. But don't assume that basically would not, because this is something that can be beneficial to I mean his era as it relating to the consequences. So my I would humbly want to say to you, let us spread the wing broadly, and to ensure as much as possible that we can incorporate all persons that have to do with the broad geographical area. As it relating to the fact that you're not getting response from most of the artists in Waterhouse, um, it might have to do with that the fact that an artist in the main is an individual. It's an individualistic profession, and sometimes person might basically don't see any immediate earnings or rewards, so to speak, from a project like this. But certainly down the road, if the things start to farm, and this is how we are as Jamaicans, So long as a man see little progress start to make, him will jump in. So I would say, don't let us get demoralized over the fact that we're not getting good response now. But to take the time, formalize the thing. In fact, I have a preliminary discussion with Chris, and one of the things I said to Chris, it is imperative that you set up some form of committee which is inclusive of the community development council, other person in the that close to the entertainment thing and so on, so that people see a face. And a face must not be individual Michael Lita or individual Chris. It must be inclusive of both of you, but also other well respected person within the space of Waterhouse. And I think that very soon people will start gravitating to the thing.
True, Rupi. One of the things too is that to pull it away from the political thing. I mean, there are a lot of artists and cultural people in all of these areas that are known and have moved between these areas. I mean, if you know people who know some of these guys, I mean, reach out to them outside of the political thing, try, get them views and them participation, ask them what kind of contribution they can do from an individual level towards those kind of ideas that Maxine has. I mean, as Maxine outlined it, it's a kind of concept that, I mean, any artist within these areas can really attach themselves to, even if the political representatives are not in agreement with these programs. The artists themselves can contribute and make the thing a success. Another thing that I found from experience, like, Rupi, we had a lot of artists and singers and DJs in the Kingston 13 space. And we used to have youth programs and all these things. And whilst you can approach these artists and tell them to attach themselves to no committee and attach themselves to this group or that group, we used to find that when we have something, like we have a concert, like, or we go to them and say, okay, we want to have a concert at this date or that date, something that is already organized that they can attach themselves to. We used to get very, very good support from these guys. I mean, some of them used to even organize bands from outside the communities to come and support us based on their contacts. So as you were saying, I mean, if some of these guys see something practical happening that is there, that they can attach themselves to and lend whatever support they can lend to the thing, it can get off the ground and it can get their support. It's not enough because they're not coming to a meeting or you invite them to come to a community center and discuss something with them. It's not enough to say, okay, since they didn't come and didn't show any interest, forget about them. I mean, organize things and then try pull them in and see what kind of support, I mean, they can offer.
Well, gentlemen, I'm not saying that. Well, put it this way: there's constant dialogue with these artists, these cultural individuals. Constant dialogue. So I'm not worried about them. I know at some point they will join us. With regards to Wholeness and Towile, I'm not saying that we should not engage Towile and Wholeness and whatever. What I'm saying is that we have certain strength in Waterhouse. And what we want to do is to focus on that and use that as our leverage. So when we go to someone and say, okay, guys, this is what we are doing, this is what it is, And this is what we are proposing. We have something practical to show them rather than theoretical. Okay. But the question I have, Maxine, now that you have done that visit, where we go from here?
Well, I think we need to see, like you described, individuals that are currently involved. We need to actually um, understand every organization that has a finger, in the mix. And then this grouping of interest, especially since it's not just local, but it's diasporic, needs to set up a entity, preferably, maybe an NGO, that can communicate structurally with what is technically on the ground already moving on the subject matter. As you were talking, I recognize that several of the international artists, maybe because they have more earnings, but several of the international, especially hip hop artists, have gone in as developers of their community. They have gone in and taken square blocks, rebuilding houses, investing back in their challenged communities, because housing development is a business, meaning you actually earn from it. It's not dead money. And so, there's a lot of examples occurring now that can, like, urban wise, you know what I mean? You can get a lot of support um, from a diaspora perspective as well, tapping into what these guys are doing, how they're doing it. And basically, I think also setting up a business plan surrounding the ideas. I find that, a business plan structures the ideas and puts them in a proper sequence, as this one will influence that one, will influence that one. So there are multiple ideas that or eventualities that can occur out of the space, but a business plan will help to explain why this one goes first and why this one triggers that one, and makes the conversation less do this first, second, or whatever, based on our viewpoints. But clearly, I saw something like this functioning in Trenchtown, where I had sat in a meeting where all kind of business people, JPS, all of these people, local people, come together in one, who own assets, because you would think that people don't own assets. A lot of people own assets that are there, but would be involved in this communication that aren't at the moment. But I would think an NGO, certainly, that can incorporate the diaspora with the local, and then that feeds into the CDCs and the other formations, SDCs, etc. On the ground would be the way to go. Would be recommended.
Which brings us to Radigan. Radigan will be working with us on the NGO, right?
We are volunteering now. Yeah, no, hold on. Before you go any further with the volunteerism thing, I just got off the phone with somebody who lives in Waterhouse, and they're watching the program actually, and they have a few things they'd like me to add. Now, keep in mind, I'm just the messenger, right? So they said, in keeping with what Maxine just said about having a business plan where you say, okay, you're going to select a particular project to go first, second, third, whatever. They said they would like to see a master plan as opposed to just a plan just focused on music, because they said most of the people in Waterhouse, they're not musicians. And so if you plan to just do have a musical element to it, then the question is, who are you trying to attract? Because when you talk about legends, most of those people, I mean, to be, if you really think about it, they don't have the resources, or they don't have the, they're probably unwilling to come and invest in Waterhouse right now. Person also said that a lot of the properties in Waterhouse owned by the government. Person mentioned down by White Lane section where you have all the lanes and all of that. He said all of that is owned by the government. And in fact, he said a former Prime Minister Siaga once said that he wanted to stand at 3 miles and look all the way down to Riverton because it's all government property. Right. So he said you have to get NHT involved in all of that. And because you have so many different neighborhoods within that neighborhood, you have White Lane, Moscow, Cuba, Wheelers, Gully Bank, Capture. He said you have to get, it's going to be it's not an insuperable task, but you're going to have to go work hard to get all of those people with different interests there. So that's why he's saying that you need to have a job creation plan as opposed to just a musical plan. He said you need to have job creation where you get some of these people involved in all kinds of trade and industry, and not just the music. So the overall sentiment is that we seem to be focused on music. If music is just one aspect of it, then that's fine. They would like to hear about the other aspects of it, but music cannot. They're saying music cannot be the only aspect of it, because if that's the case, it's doomed for failure. So,
but if I can just say this, that this is a particular project, right? Which particular program that Maxine came up with. This wasn't something that was supposed to be addressing all of these social factors that is being mentioned there. So, the listener could understand it from that perspective as well. That what he's talking about is really something that would be much more comprehensive, which is not what this was initially about, this particular program.
This is not to, I think the listener should understand that this is not to replace the social responsibility of the politicians. This is just to recognize the cultural value of the area, right? And to recognize, through it will create some economic spin-offs, and it will create some social upliftment in the area, but it's not to take over from the responsibility of the politicians, right? It's just to add.
Yeah, again, a sense of what I'm getting from the listener is that, for example, the person mentioned that down by White Lane, down that section down there, you need drainage. Actually, the whole area, you need drainage, you need roads. And so when they hear economic, they're thinking, okay, jobs. They're not thinking just about a cultural experience, but primarily others. Yes, there is a certain sense of pride for people who live there, but they're not the ones who are going to be financially supporting, the initiative. I think it's intended for people to come in and experience the thing because they live there. So they're not going to, most of the money coming in on this initiative wouldn't be coming from people living in the community anyway. So once they hear economic, they're saying, okay, what does this mean for us now as a people in terms of how do I pay my bills? What about my medical? So they're seeing it, and I guess that's where the disconnect is. We're seeing it as an initiative, just one thing. And they're saying, no, we need more than that for this neighborhood. We need a whole bunch of things. So they're saying, well, we need to see government, private industry, the civil society. We need to see a come together, a meeting of all of the minds to develop the area in a comprehensive manner, as opposed to just taking a little slice of it. And they don't mind the slice. They're saying we don't mind the slice if the slice is part of a pie, so that we fix this and then we'll move on to the other thing. But if the idea is just to fix this and leave the rest of the stuff untouched, then they're saying there's gonna be, it's all for naught. So
Can I say this? Can I say this? When Chris and I started working on this, the idea was the question before us was what do we have in the community at this present moment that we can use to engage the young people in our community? And the conclusion then was that we have the culture. We have a competitive advantage with the culture. Why not use it? So we start to identify some historical place in Waterhouse. I understand what the listener is saying and what have you, but we have to start from somewhere, and we are starting with the advantage that we have. While doing that, we continue to pressure the MP around road improvement. Quite a number of roads got fixed because of our pressure, advocating and what have you. You have Conway Road, Farm Road, Grenade, and what have you. So
Elasto
Avenue. So we are doing that, but we have to start from somewhere, and it's only now that we sort of broaden out the outreach and we're presenting the idea to a group of individuals like yourself, So we're going to get there, and I agree with Rupi. Maxine is the right person at the right time. She has the knowledge and what have you, and we figure that a partnership with Maxine would strengthen what we are doing. Okay, that is what we are working on, and hopefully we'll have more to tell you as we go further down the road. John, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Maxine made a very good point. And the phrase that she used is lots of hanging wires. That's absolutely true. It's inevitable. We cannot solve everything at the same time. And I understood the approach of the culture was exactly what you just said. It doesn't mean that we're not looking at the other things. This is exactly why I am so hard and committed to this idea of this working people manifesto. It includes some of the things that this gentleman is talking about. The community building and the this and the crime and all of these things are part of the fabric that make up community life in Jamaica. So, it's a case of trying to accomplish or to institute one specific program. Comments about not being partisan, I agree with it 100%. People must say that they don't want to work with you rather than you don't work with them. And if we do go towards the idea of a manifesto, one of the very powerful benefits of the manifesto is to take away from individuals, whatever the person is, what PNP, JLP, singer, worker, woman, man, Catholic, Rasta, is trying to bring them together on the basis of issues, conditions that the community and the working people are experiencing. But Mr. Chairman, I see it is now 4:30.
Okay.
And we are finishing at 5. So I need your guidance because
first I want to welcome Arville. Arville, welcome Arville to the discussion.
Yes, Arville.
Can we now move to the discussion of the manifesto?
I just want to say one thing, Mikey, before you move.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that this listener raised this thing, because what it is showing us is that in terms of education around this project, we're gonna have to make it a part of the education around the project, that people in these communities know that this is grassroots development. It is not development from the top, from the politicians and from the hierarchy of the society. And with grassroots development, the whole aim of grassroots development is to make small successes, achieve small successes where you can demonstrate to people that things can work, right? If you have proper organization along with good ideas, they can work. And if these things work, they can pull in more members of the community, as well as pull in some of these people in the hierarchy of the society who can support projects in these communities. So it is very important that we got this kind of feedback from the listener, to concretize the messages around this project.
Okay.
Mikey, I want to add to that. Just quickly add to that, just very briefly. What last just says imperative, because Will as the messenger, remember you have an audience, and it is so critical that you listen to your audience. And I think what you're doing, is not in contradiction to the proposal from that person, All the person saying is that basically them love what you're doing, but they want to see the thing much broader. That you basically look at a holistic plan as it relating to Waterhouse, which they understand this aspect of the plan is in essence what you conceptualize initially as it relating to the community, because it is a low-hanging fruit, so to speak, and you're picking that. But look at the tree and the forest, so to speak, as it relating to other elements. So I agree, and that will try to put forward the idea from that person. So let us while focus on this in relationship to the musical aspect of the thing, look widely and broader at the whole plan for the community at house.
Yeah, well, but before we move on, maybe if we could get a response from Maxine as well, because Maxine hasn't really responded to the comments from the listener.
Well, I actually thought that I had done that prior to him making his comment. When I said that we needed to understand all the things that were happening on the ground, touching these areas, even when I mentioned about the hotel, it's not a music issue. It would have been a housing, development, etc. So I assume that there would be a master plan for these communities that already exist across the country, actually, when they talk about SOEs and state of emergencies. And, so I'm assuming that you have competing interests in terms of development and focus on particular communities and, etc., etc. And just as what Lass is saying, we may have an opportunity as grassroots interest in a particular area to focus a spotlight. And that's why I said a grouping like this would have to have its some kind of entity that then is, speaking to or can respond to all of these other existing groupings, even creatively. There's already people dealing with UNESCO. There's already people even within the music. There may be already people, you know, thinking, doing whatever. But we may be coming with a particular um, platform that's also timely. You know, we're doing this because we're looking at a campaign and a focus. So I assume that all of these communities do in fact have master plans, but oftentimes the budgetary restrictions or, you know, there's a lot of issues surrounding, you know, how Jamaica distributes its resources. I definitely know that everybody knows on a governmental level what is happening everywhere and is just trying to, you know, shuffle the deck to see how they can best manage. So from a individual perspective and from a grassroots perspective, you know, whatever we can do to impact our own lives and our own community lives, you know, and to say, you know, as much as we know we don't want to depend on government, even though we say we put them there to govern us, etc., etc. It's, you know, that's how I feel, you know. I'm just independently doing something. I independently have access to something. I'll independently plug it in. But I know I'm not presuming. I'm presuming actually that there's existing um, projects or plans or proposals, and that many are dormant because of resources or, you know, and we'll just learn.
Gentlemen, we have to move the discussion to the manifesto. Okay. John, you want to take the lead on this?
Do I have a choice?
No.
No.
All right. So, gentlemen, I sent out the document this morning, and I know that most people may not have a chance to go through it before. I'm just going to read it and elaborate on some of the points. The reason why I am so convinced about the need for something like this is because every single meeting I've been to on this group bring me back to the need for this document. This meeting today, the guy who called in and said we must look on crime and we need to look on road community development, basically is what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that we are going to, this document is not, the purpose of it is not to build road. The purpose of it is not to build community. It's to provide a set of principles for the country affecting ordinary working people. So the first, let me read it rather than talk over it. It says, what is a manifesto? It's a public declaration of aims and objectives, usually very brief, a sort of call to action or a set of principles. Now, the second question is, what is the purpose? The purpose of our manifesto, and again, when you look at Wikipedia, and I put in the word manifesto, I saw a manifesto for women. There was a Zionist manifesto. If I recall correctly, Marcus Garvey also had a manifesto when he launched the movement in the United States. There are many organizations who launch manifestos that are not political parties. So it's true that the first original well-known manifesto was the Communist Manifesto, and that is where the name probably spread. and people associate the term maybe negatively, but I would like us to look at the purpose. It's to educate, to agitate, to harness support towards the declarations outlined in the document. While manifestos are best known as associated with political parties, this is far from the case. In our instance, this document is aimed for application in any situation. I would like to underline that phrase so that we get out of our head the idea that this is to launch a political party or something of that nature. I'm going to give different scenarios where, in my view, the manifesto would be applicable. And I give a couple examples. What do we mean by to educate? To raise the understanding of the population on critical issues affecting them and the country. Secondly, to agitate, to allow people to embrace in any forum some of the points or all of the points outlined in this document. Number three, to unify, to bring commonality to various sectors of the people as a whole. So whether you are a Labourite or a PNP, are there things in here that you, as a grassroots person, would embrace? Have nothing to do with what your party is. Nothing to do with what your gender is. Nothing to do with your status. It's just some hardcore issues that we are hoping people will embrace. Number four, help to grow our influence. Help to grow our influence and followership among Jamaicans inside as well as outside the country. And number five is to give direction. Another word for direction is leadership. Leadership don't come from a man stand up in front of people. Leadership come from the people understanding our situation and embracing the solutions that might be offered in this manifesto. To ordinary grassroots people, giving leadership to ordinary, I've made this point, regardless of income, status, sex, political affiliation, or religion. So what are some of the contexts that this could apply? I am thinking, will a teacher or could a teacher print out this document and hand it out to his or her students in 10th grade and say to them, what do you think about this manifesto? And them have a discussion in the class. I am thinking of parents who go to a PTA meeting and who will find on this document points that they may agree with. I am thinking of a trade union delegate who have a meeting with workers in his workplace. I am thinking of a priest who is in the community doing work in his church and who get a copy of this and him can agree. He may not agree with every single point, but he will agree with most of it. And I will speak about how we get it to become a document that is really speaking on behalf of the working people. And this is a process, because we are, as Maxine said, we are a group. We're a small group, even though we have the best intention in the world. The fact is, we are a small group of nearly like-minded individuals. Because we don't need everybody to be like-minded to look on this and say, yes, I agree with this manifesto or this document. What we would like is to deepen the development of the manifesto as best as possible to ensure it represents the interests of the ordinary man and woman and the youths. This can be done by ensuring that the issues are critical to the interests of the working people. How? So Rupi work among certain people. Rupi know people other than himself, whether he's a trade union leader, or I know people other than myself, who is a teacher, or a union a JTA representative, a delegate, and I can give this to them and say, can I get your input on education? And Rupi will give his own to them and say, can I get your input on trade union workers' rights? When we get to the sections, we can talk about them in more detail. But my view is that this don't need to be more than 10 sections. And I've listed 10 of them. I've listed 9, sorry. And therefore, we need to look at them, whether this is better than, whether the terminology I use is not gospel. It's for us to decide what are the issues that should be focused on. Okay. So here I'm saying that we should try to complete the final draft by the end of February. It's not wise to put it through Christmas, probably. So whatever we do, we're trying to get expert opinion and we're trying to get grassroots opinion with whether or not it's expert. And by that accumulation of getting feedback, some from people who are calling in, who are listening to us, and others from people we know. There are people we know have expertise in crime. I can go to somebody and say, here we have this document. Would you be able to provide us? Tell me what you think about the recommendations here. How can we improve it? Bearing in mind, we're not trying to build a detailed plan of how we're going to solve crime. It's going to list the objectives primarily, the high points, and that is what we're going to use to constitute this manifesto, a set of principles. So number 4, we embrace the following rights as essential to the just development of Jamaica. So I started with some of the concrete ones. The right to housing. Every person should have the right to decent housing, roof over my head, according to the mighty diamonds. Toilet in every house, adequate running water in every home. The right to a just education, abolition of an education system where money give more advantage over ability, and abolition of illiteracy at the elementary school level. Now, these may not be the most current, up-to-date problems of education, but when I was in the system and what I've read and in my experience with family who have children going to school in Jamaica, these still remain 2 big issues. So my job would be, how can I refine these? I have 2 sentences there. We don't want it to be 10 sentences. Can be 2, and we just need to make sure that they are up to date and current. Number 3. Now, I will be advised, gentlemen and lady, whether we separate crime from what I call a decent community life. I put them together because I believe that crime is one of the biggest hindrance to a decent community life in Jamaica. Every Jamaican, regardless of status or income, has the right to live free of crime. Now, we don't have to use that language because the first thing a man going to say, John mad. Even in this group, you know, we're going to tell me, say, I'm mad, you mean free of crime? Can't get rid of crime. The goal is not to say we are getting rid of crime completely, but we are reducing crime to the point where it become negligible. And that's the spirit of this document. So we are justice, community policing, health and social justice. These are the things that came up in the last discussion. I don't know if capitalists, somebody mentioned the last time that we didn't have a role for capitalists. It's something that we can mention in different sections. It's not an independent, I don't think I would put it as a separate section itself. And unemployment. I can't see how we can talk about community life without addressing unemployment, particularly among the youth. The fourth area is women's rights. I only can tell you what I read in the Star and in the Gleaner, but mostly in the Star with the girls, the molestation, physical abuse, whether it's on the public transport or going home. So I just put here, so these are two issues. I know somebody that I can go to and say to them, we need 2 key points on women's rights. Are these the 2 key points? Without making it into an epistle. We don't want a whole epistle on women's rights. We just want a few sentences. I think another area that I put here is transparency and corruption, because it's all encompassing. I don't believe the all things of utility, issues of utility don't stand up as good today as certain things that we expect from government and from the public sector. Transparency and corruption, I prefer to use that terminology, and I believe that there is sufficient experience of what are some of the things that can be done. I have their race. I have racial rights. It's kind of clumsy, but Jamaica is still a country where the higher up you go, the less black you see. Nobody can debate that. Whether you go high up in the hill to live or you go high up in the company to work, it's still red man or white man run things. So we need to have a declaration there regarding racial rights instead of, you know, it's related. I put the word, quote Garvey. Garvey is the man that most everybody acknowledge spoke about this. And what we need is a few policy issues that address this problem. The right to work. So again, this would include the biggest, as I put here, the biggest demands of the working people, the issues related to unionization, to youth and training, as well as unemployment. So unemployment, whether you take it here or you take it in the community area, I am open. I don't have no fixed thing on where these things go. I just think we want to agree on the issues, and then we can take it to the next step. Economic development. This document must, because anybody who have money, who is a small or a big capitalist in Jamaica, want to know, is this a policy to get rid of them or not? Are we going back to manly days where I run with people out the country? It's not going to be said necessarily, but it's in the mind. And so we want to show the role, the value, the importance that we give to both big and small capitalists in the country's development. I'm not sure what the role is of the IMF, but I can find that out easy in terms of how they are in our day and in manly day. The IMF was squeezing the country. They have made some changes, yes, but the dollar is 150 or whatever to one. It has implications for people who, you know, for Jamaicans. It means that the price of things are always going up, and also it may be nice to go back and say, I have a friend who buying a house in Jamaica, and she's obviously going to spend a certain amount on a house. Our manifesto is not for those people. Our manifesto is for people who living in Jamaica, who have a life in Jamaica, and who want to should have a decent life in Jamaica. And therefore, whatever we say on economic development, it must be geared to the majority of the people. And the last point, which is not in any order of importance, is the point I made about the last time about constitutional reform. And what that really is, consider this to be a car. The brakes, the steering wheel, and the gear stick is the constitutional reform. Cannot run this car without you have control, without you have influence on the behavior of those that run things, those in the power. So constitutional reform is what strengthens the influence of working people to implement all of the above. That's why I put it at the end instead of at the beginning, so that we can see, or we have to make the point that that's what it would do, and that's what it's there for. So, in summary, one, I would like this meeting, but before we adjourn, to agree who will take which section. By taking a section, it means we either going to modify it, develop it, and find people with the knowledge and expertise to develop it. So I don't have to know anything about women's rights. I might know somebody who should be knowledgeable on women's rights, and I can say to them, would you assist? And what we do, we go through the process. We have a time, we're going to set a time, say at the end of January, to get a first draft. When everybody done drink up the white rum and the thing, and we come back after the holiday, and we can put together a draft, which would be basically either we come in a meeting and we report on what we get, or we submit something. I'm willing to be the person that you give it to, and I will incorporate it into a document. And then we do another draft again. We discuss it. We see where things that might be weak or okay, or we are happy with this section or that section, we want to change it. But my idea is by the end of February, we would have completed a draft of the manifesto. Having used the word manifesto, I see where Nita call it working people manifesto. I call it grassroots manifesto. I don't want us to get hung up on the terms. I think we have a good understanding of what we mean and what we're driving at. So those are my points. Thank you.
Feedback, questions? Any questions?
Yeah. A few things, because I first of all, let me commend you, John, for putting together this, right? Because certainly you know, this draft give us a guideline as to, you know, that we can follow in terms of developing, you know, this manifesto. The question I have is, you're proposing that each person take a section or something like that. My thing is that there are several sections that I would have, you know, remarks on and would want to really, you know, add my piece to it. So it wouldn't be any just one section or anything like that. That's one. And then the other thing is that I would want to suggest that we all look it over, make our notes and so on, and then we consider the next meeting, right, when we decide whether it's a meeting, first meeting in January or something like that. Then we have a full discussion on our notations and everything. And then we'll go from there, you know, working towards the second draft.
I agree with you, Patrick. I don't think we should like specify specific sections for people to work on. I think, you know, everybody need to look at the thing and add, make proposals for addition, and we come back at some time in January, have a look at it, and make a final draft.
Radigan, corruption and transparency.
No,
What do
I
you
agree.
think about what John is proposing?
No, I agree with lots in the sense that, you know, people should just look at the different, because remember, no, this is a manifesto, and my understanding of a manifesto is just general terms. It's not specific, like you know, you have a paper on crime or something like that. So I think we should just leave it open, and people just, you know, you put your one line in or your one paragraph in and say what you think that transparency and corruption, how you know, what's your sense of what it is and how it should be dealt with. So everybody get a chance to put something. I don't think we have, you know, we should start going down to expertise here. I think you get to expertise once this document is completed, and now you start getting into the nitty gritty. You know, you start taking, you know, segment by segment. Then you have people know who that's their specialty and they can speak to it. But I think this should be general in terms.
John, this is a national document, right? For the country.
Correct.
The question is, how do we get it into the hands of the people?
I'm sorry. I actually had some thoughts on that.
John, before you answer that,
yes.
let me just say this, is that we have examples, right? Since it's a national document, right, for the country, we have examples of manifestos out there. And so we have to be careful. This is just my thought right now, that you don't end up composing something that's been proposed already. See, for example, you don't say, okay, this is what we as members of the diaspora and members of the Jamaican concerned public, here's a document we think that the government should look at, and then they say, oh well, we have it here already. You know, it's right here. It's mirroring everything that we've said. So I think one of the things we have to do before we even start putting things on paper is to look to see what they've written, because you don't want to give them back something that they've composed already. I mean, because when you say it's a national document, you plan to give it to the government. Am I correct?
No, not necessarily. No.
Who you plan to give it
to the people who are listening to
Yeah,
us.
It's just for discussion and understanding.
All right,
Because
well, keep this
as
in
it
mind.
says, it's basically to educate,
All
right?
right, keep
And
this in mind, Patrick, though. Keep this in mind that both political parties have manifestos. And I've looked at them, and they have pretty much some of the same categories we have here. And that's publicized. And I submit to you that most of Jamaica have never read those documents. And they put them out every political cycle, they put them out. Every political cycle, they put them out. And I submit to you that people have not read those documents. So what we need to do is come up with some kind of public relations campaign as to how we will get people to actually read this document.
well, here's the thing. I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to say something in terms of the caption we use, right, towards a grassroots manifesto. First of all, let's put things in perspective. Manifesto is really a Spanish word, right? It's really speaking to a manifest. A manifest is an English word. Now, what is a manifest? Right? Because we're going to need to explain that. That's the first thing the document should explain. It should define what it is, right? So that would be one of the first points I would want to address, right? That a manifest, basically, it would be a document which tries to incorporate everything. That's basically what a manifest is. It's like if you're thinking about, like I've worked in the shipping industry, right? So each ship carrying cargo carries a manifest, and the manifest really covers all the goods that are laden on that ship, who it belongs to, the whole thing, where it's destined for, and so on. So it would be the same thing when it comes. A manifest is basically a document, right, which says, right, which tries to be a complete document. In our case, it would be a document dealing with the kind of things that address grassroots issues that we are concerned about, which we think needs to be addressed. Right? So that's basically what would be defining, right, the document. Right? That the manifest is really supposed to be a comprehensive document, right, which tries to look at all the issues, all the grassroots issues that we would like to put forward, right, to be addressed or to be dealt with.
Rupert.
You're muted. You're muted, Rupert.
Okay.
You're still muted, Rupert.
Not hearing you.
First, Maxine.
Now I agree with the review of the document, and I also, in listening to Will, the fact is that the two parties are actively presenting their manifestos as they're going into election mode, and to the extent that the people are not focused and are reading either of them, that this manifesto should somewhat break down, what they're saying and not saying, and what is hollow, or just, what do you call it, surface suggestions from them, from either side, and get people more educated on what they should be truly aiming to achieve. For example, the constitutional reform, it started with a bang, and then I don't know where it is. It's just like evaporated into thin air, So I would think that what the group is seeking to do is to plug these holes, and inform, keep informing the people, keeping them on their toes as we go into, and demand of both parties or who would seek to govern, you know, what
Wait.
what is truly what we can truly, achieve. So it's more like edifying the public, especially the ones, because I think the system is so rigged towards people who don't even think about what is happening. That's why the last election only 30% or whatever percent, it's very damning to me, the amount of people that don't vote. You know what I mean? So I guess, again, also in my mind, just talking freely, is getting people who should be voting to vote, to influence the process. So I agree about observing the framework presented, and also to look at what the other two manifestos uh, are also presenting, because we're coming into that environment.
For me, this has nothing to do with what the other manifestos are presenting. We're not trying to compete with any other manifesto. The whole exercise of this thing is that we have been presenting a certain perspective on issues in Jamaica, right? We are saying we don't want people to be legacy voters. We want people to be aware of the issues and vote on issues. What we are doing is bringing together some issues which can be the talking point of these people who want to vote. It can be it raising the various areas that affecting them, which they need to pay some attention to when it comes to giving their vote to somebody. That's all it's doing. It doesn't matter what the PNP is saying, what the JLP is saying. If the PNP is saying something that coincides with what we are saying, good. If the JLP is saying something that coincides with what this manifesto is saying, good. It's not about that. It's providing a talking point from the perspective that we've been presenting on these on our programs for some time. Just how we as grassroots people should look at these things. That's all this manifesto is saying. This is the way we as grassroots should look at these things. If the way that we are looking at it comes up in the PNP manifesto, and the way that we say we should look at it come up in the JP manifesto, no issue, no problem. That's good, right? But we are just broadening the mind of the people in saying, instead of giving your agreement or your vote to somebody without considering the issues, these are some of the issues you should be thinking about. And these are some perspectives that you not should, but you can consider while you're going to put your vote or your X to somebody.
Well said, Lars.
Johnny, want a response to that?
Yes. First of all, let me apologize. I did not want anybody to feel that each of us going only focus on one thing. So the idea of everybody looking at the whole document, absolutely correct. And at the end of the day, I agree. Last couldn't have said it any better in regard to the PNP and the JLP. So what? If a man go to the PNP conference and him look at our manifesto and him read
John, hold a minute. There's a sound. There's a funny sound. Can the
Yeah,
others move their
I hear
mic?
it. I hear it.
Can you guys move? All right, John, go ahead.
come back again.
Yeah, it's still there.
Can you mute?
It's like chewing.
Yeah, Patrick, mute your mic, Patrick. Ratigan, you can mute yours. Rupi, can you mute yours? All right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what Last said is Last who said it about the PNP and the JLP. It don't matter. In other words, if a man go to a party meeting and him use the points in your manifesto, hooray to our manifesto. It don't matter that certain things going to coincide. It's not like the country is so complex.
Hold on, John. We still hear that sound. Rupi, can you mute yours?
Yeah, I think it's Rupee on. When he turned off a while ago, it
Yeah. Rupi, can you? Yeah. All right. Continue, John.
Yeah. So that don't that's not an issue. I think the bigger point is that we will all go and review, improve on it, put flesh, especially on the areas that are not developed at all, and even on some of the areas that are developed, because we're trying to get a document that we all will agree. So long as we understand the spirit of it, it's not a work plan. It's not going to have no whole thing on crime or on constitutional reform. It's going to have certain points that are of biggest advantage to the working people, and that's what we're looking for. So why don't we agree on a time to come back, because now it's 5 o'clock gone. When in January should we meet again with about this? The middle?
Hello?
Hello?
Second week in January.
Second week in January is the second week in January will be Sunday the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
That can work.
That can work. So all of us, when we don't drink the white rum and so, we should be okay. Whether it's herbs or white rum, we should be okay by then.
Can we bring Rupi into the discussion? Rupi.
Yeah.
What's your feedback on the manifesto?
You're muted again. Rupi.
Something going on with the mic.
Rupi, you're muted. All right, you're good now.
You're coming on in and out.
Yes, you hear me now?
A little bit.
All right. Commendation, like Patrick, I want to commend John for the initiative. It definitely stimulates a lot of thought processes, and put us in a position to think deeply as it relating to what is lacking in the country in terms of people development and therefore what is necessary going forward. After saying all of that, let me agree with John and not so much in agreement with most of the panelists who said that we just get us comment on everything. And so I think what John is trying to achieve is to put forward something that is more structured, so to speak. So if you ask a person to just develop on this area and another person to develop on another area, it don't mean that we won't comment on all of it. We can comment on all areas. Just in terms of our own thought process and each of the individual areas. So I am in agreement with John that from a structured point of view and in terms of going forward and to don't let us waste a lot of time, it would be good if individual take individual section and actually develop around that. And what it means is that all us who still come and comment, maybe the very thing that you have now in terms of your thought process, the person might very well who have developed the era might very well put that on paper. So there might be no need, as well as that might not be on paper, and therefore you come and you make your pronouncement, so to speak. The second agreement I'm in agreement with. I think it is extremely difficult not to have a program or to have a manifesto which is not similar to one or the two parties. There's going to be elemented, particularly if it's a grassroots, or as Michael call it, a working people agenda or a working people manifesto. It is going to be closer to what the People's National Party have. Because in a nutshell, we are going to develop something that is going to be as much as possible 100% inclusive of the Jamaican ordinary people, and to ensure that it's a document going forward and give our experience now at this time that can help, so to speak, to develop these persons and to develop the country. So I think it might be a little bit difficult, Will, for us not to have similarities or look close to what either of them have. And I think it would be closer to what the PNP have now. I would want to say, though, John, there's two areas that I think that maybe you should look at. Certainly the question of environment and sustainable development. And you never say nothing about local government, but I think you talk about governance. And I don't know if local government can fit under governance. Maybe not. But those are two areas that I would want you to add. Is local government and the whole question. The environmental thing now is an international thing that...
Yeah, I had it on the last one, you know. I had it on the last one. You mean climate change thing, the climate change business?
Yeah, still
well, it come under environment. Come under environment.
Yeah, I'm looking where it is. Well, we didn't have it on this one. So number 10.
And I think what Rupi says is important in terms of the local government side, because some people don't really understand the difference either between the local government and the national government. So that too is important.
Yeah, you guys can make the change. You can hold under the whole area of governance.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever change you guys want to put, you know, to make it better. So long as it's not more than 2 pages. This thing, you see, that way of 9 points and it's only 2 pages. We
you have 12 points.
10. Huh?
You have 12 points.
I didn't hear you.
You have 12, not 9.
Well, it's not 12, it's 9 points in terms of issues. Number 4.
I just looking at the listing, so you know, that's why I said 12.
Yeah, it's 4. Where is the number 4? It go 4, 1 to 8 to 9, and then we can add 10 environment.
Gentlemen, I think this is a good first start. You know, having a manifesto is definitely something that is needed. The question for me, though, is, and I asked it earlier, how do we get the people, the Jamaican people, behind this manifesto? How do we get them? What steps are we going to take to get the ordinary people, especially diaspora? You know, is this something that we're going to post and ask people to sign off on? Or is it something we're just going to circulate? I'm not sure, but the question is, how do we get the Jamaican people at home and abroad behind this document? And I don't have an answer just now.
I have an answer, and I propose that I give the part of the discussion at the meeting in January. We put that on the table.
Okay.
For example, a website.
Okay.
This.
Any additional comments?
How we can improve on this?
Yeah.
People calling and asking where the phone number to call in. You never run the phone number underneath at the bottom.
I can do that now.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So I want to thank everyone for their input. This is really a great start. I know some folks are going to react and say, oh, we are a bunch of politicians trying to push something on the Jamaican people. But that should not stop us. Okay, we are from Jamaica. We have lived under the condition. We know what it's like, and we know the need. Okay, so again, I want to thank John, Ratigan, Las, Rupi, and Patrick for your time. And we're going to do that next week. Rupi, I want to thank you for your participation. And I want to thank the listeners. There are many comments. I want to thank you for all these comments. And remember,
and Will, you never mentioned Will, and we'll have an announcement for the OL.
Will Ratigan.
Yeah,
I didn't mention Will. Oh, that's
yes, you did.
Yeah, Will, you have an announcement.
For OJLDF.
Oh yeah, the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation.
Is that what you sent to me?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Is the same one you donate? Is the same one like donate to listen?
Yes.
Okay.
What we're doing with that is it's a way of holding politicians, governments accountable to the people, and essentially we seek to do so through lawsuits, public relations campaign, and background investigations on corrupt or suspected corrupt politicians. And the Kamina Johnson Smith case, that the appeal has been filed already without any fanfare. We noticed with the media, they haven't said a word about it. But based on all the legal luminaries who have looked at the document, they believe that it's going to be overturned and it's going to be sent back to the Supreme Court for a do-over, and that spells trouble for
the puny judge.
Yeah, for the judges and the government. The second thing is we're planning to file another lawsuit. Hopefully we'll be able to do it next week. And this one has to do with the Speaker's violation of convention and protocol in tabling reports from the Integrity Commission, because she made a unilateral decision that she's now going to send the reports to an oversight committee, and the oversight committee doesn't have the legal responsibility of reviewing decisions regarding investigations and prosecutions by the Integrity Commission. It's purely administrative to make sure that they're acting in accordance with their mandate, they're properly staffed, properly resourced. So we're gonna file a lawsuit, hopefully, I said, like next week, to get a decision as to whether or not.
See if I can find why.
So that's why we ask people to go to the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation's website. It's ojldf.org, and there we have interesting articles. In fact, we have the complete legal, almost complete set of legal documents regarding the Kamina Johnson Smith case. So you can go read it for yourself and see whether or not you think the judge made a judicious decision. We think not, but the documents are there. It's not It's not a witness testimony where somebody says that they believe or whatever. It's American government documents, Jamaican government documents, her affidavit, and my filing paper. So people can go look at that. So again, that's just another way of holding the government accountable. I think in the same vein as the proposed manifesto. So people, support it because we need to pay. In fact, there is a politician, and we're doing, and here's where I'm asking people, saying, look, if you really want to do something about changing the political landscape of Jamaica, I'm not talking about changing political party. I'm talking about changing the way politicians relate to the constituencies. Then you need to support the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. For example, I found out, and we're digging into it right now. There's a politician who purchased a piece of property, and he, for the amount of money that he purchased it, and I'm being told that it was purchased cash, he has never worked that much money in his life. If you add up everything that he's worked from the time he left school till now, he hasn't worked that much money. So we're going to be doing some stuff like digging into transfers, digging into real estate records and everything like that. And again, that takes money because we have to pay investigators to go out and do whatever they need to do to bring this thing to light. I'm also looking into potential corruption in the office of the DPP, and we're going to bring those things to light. So if you want to make an impact in Jamaica beyond just talking, then let your dollars do the talking, and we'll get to work. Because believe me, Jamaica is content rich. There's a lot going on there. And when I say a lot, I'm talking about a lot of corruption going on there. And we need to unearth it. So thank you for the time.
Ratigan, beg you, send me to my email. Send it to the things. Brethren, at my age, I can't see these things on my phone, You have to send it to my email.
Okay, no problem. I'll make it easy for you. What I'll do is I'll send you the QR code. So all you have to do is just take your cell phone, put up against the code, and it takes you right.
When it go on my cell phone, I get it to my laptop now?
No. The QR code. You put your cell phone up to the code on your laptop, right? And it's gonna take you straight into the donation section.
Right, but I will only be seeing it on my
Oh, you want to see it on your phone?
On my phone. I don't want it
on my phone. You can do the same thing on your laptop.
I know. I just send it to my laptop. Just send everything to my email.
All right, fair enough.
Gentlemen, thank you, and I'm gone again. Now.
All right, John. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, man.
And you know something, before you go, John, I just found out today that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will be here in the United States. I know about the diaspora conference that was held in France, I think yesterday or the day before. I knew about that, but they're coming up here on this. They're coming up. They're having an event on the 6th of December. Now, I plan to file a lawsuit against the minister in America, and the person who sent it to me, it's just I don't have enough time to get the complaint ready. So I just wrote to the person and said, listen, the next time you find out that she's coming, just give me advance notice so that when she steps off the plane, I can have a process server just serve her with the documents right there, and then that's it. But they're coming up this week.
Where is it? Send that in the email.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to your phone.
No, man, send it to me email. Beg you.
All right. I'll try and get to your email. Yeah, but they're gonna be here. Let me see something. They're coming up Tuesday. They're having an event at the Waldorf Astoria. And then they're having something.
New York?
In New York.
Yeah.
But they're going to be in Washington.
In Manhattan.
Yeah, man. That your place that near you.
No, not me.
No, man, me, Ratigan.
Oh, yeah, my place that. Oh, I will tell you. I tell
You're there, DC.
Gentlemen,
All right.
All
And
right.
this week, I want to, and remember, when you're not watching Waterhouse Vibes, tune in every Saturday to Reason with Ratigan, 3
Yes.
p.m. every
Yes.
Saturday.
Yes, indeed.
The most critical show on Earth right now.
On the planet.
On the planet. Reason with Ratigan. So I want to thank everyone, and until we meet again, you walk good, drive
Yes.
safe, and don't drink any rum.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool then.